This is problem 7-67 from section 7.1.4. This problem is a checkpoint for finding the x and y intercepts. This is important. So if you're not sure how to answer this question after watching this video, you need to get help from your teacher to make sure that you can practice these. We should know how to do this concept as of this point. So we're going to find the x and y intercepts of this quadratic function right here without a calculator. So without typing it into our graph, we're going to figure it out algebraically. So I know for my x-intercepts, I'm going to plug in y equals 0. Okay, so the opposite variable is going to become 0. So if I plug in 0, I have 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 17. So first thing you'll probably think about is to factor. So if I try to factor this, if I do my rectangle, x squared, I have negative 17 up here, and I do my diamond, negative 17x squared, and 4x would go on the bottom. Now, thinking of things that multiply to get us to negative 17, and there's only one thing that multiplies to get to 17, whether it be positive or negative. 1 and 17. 17 is a prime number. I can't do anything with these numbers to get me to 4, so because I can't solve the diamond problem, it's not factorable. Now that does not mean that there aren't any x-intercepts. I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So here's the quadratic formula. Okay, so the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to plug in those things. Our b value is positive 4. So I really have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a, which was 1, and c was negative 17. That negative is very important, so don't forget that. Divided by 2a. Right? So if I solve this, I'm going to simplify it a little bit here and there. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus, which really becomes a plus, 80, no, not 84. That's what we get when we add it all together. I really get 68 here. Okay, divided by 2. So if I add 16 plus 68, I'm going to have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 84 divided by 2. Now we want to simplify this a little bit. If you were asked to graph this, it might be helpful to change this into a decimal format so you know how to graph it, because I have no idea what this number really represents without plugging in my calculator and getting that. So we would want to change it to decimal form, but it's not asking us to graph, so we can just keep it like this and simplify it as much as possible. So not quite done yet. I want to simplify that radical sign. So I know 84 can really be 21 times 4. Okay? So I'm trying to simplify that radical. And I know the square root of 4 is worth 2. So I'm going to pull that out and put it here. So now I no longer have that inside my square root. So I really have x equals, I'm finding my x-intercepts, negative 4 plus or minus that 2 times the square root of 21 divided by 2. So now I can simplify it. I can get rid of that denominator. This will become a 2, this is gone, and this is gone. Okay? So remember, if I need to break this up, if that helps you, into this fraction divided by 2, and then this fraction divided by 2, you can do that as well. So it's not just, if I cancel the 4 and the 2, this top 2 stays. That is not what happens. Okay? So my final answer for my x-intercepts would be 2 plus or minus the square root of 21. So that's for my x-intercepts. Okay? Again, if you had to graph this, I would most likely plug in the calculator to get a decimal answer. Now for the y-intercepts, again, I'm having the opposite variable become 0. So I'm going to plug in x equals 0 into our original equation. which was this. Okay, so I'm going to replace my x's with 0. So y equals 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 17. Okay, so this becomes 0, this is 0, so really my y-intercept becomes negative 17. So my y-intercepts, if it's given in standard form, should be pretty easy. They're just the constant term at the end. So I can find my x-intercepts and y-intercepts by plugging in 0 for the opposite variable. If you are still confused on finding the x and y-intercepts from a quadratic function, please see your teacher. The checkpoint is most likely going to be on the Chapter 7 test. I know that's a while away, it's after spring break, but all these checkpoint questions are things we need to make sure you know how to do. So definitely ask your teacher if you are still unsure.